Hello everyone, tonight we are standing ankle-deep in dry earth, in the kind of silence that doesn't begin after sound, but before it. You are here in the ruins of a clay floor nursery and the dirt under your soles has just exhaled. It does that sometimes, as if remembering how to breathe. To your left, an open pit square, shallow and centuries old. At the bottom lies a figure shaped like a child but made of fired clay. Its fingers are too long. Its mouth is open, and in that open mouth 7 small, dark lumps have been arranged like teeth. Tongues, really, if you count the tiny forked carvings at their ends. You probably won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You are not the first to find her, but you may be the last. The hole she sleeps in wasn't discovered by archaeologists or grave robbers or children playing with sticks. It was found by a woman with a trowel and a theory no one respected. Her name was Maya Drell, and she had argued for years that clay dolls buried in Iron Age cradles were not toys, but burial placeholders, substitute sleepers, she called them. She published a paper about it. No one cited it except herself, repeatedly, which may be a form of academic haunting. The site you're visiting was her final excavation, a forgotten nursery mound near a collapsed ring fort where infant bones had been rumored to turn up during spring flooding. The clay floor was packed tight, the walls low and wide. Inside, the light changed color when you exhaled, and just behind the center hearth under a hexagonal slab she found the doll. It was small, maybe half a loaf of bread. Its face had no eyes, just a wide, thin slit of a mouth. When she touched it, something whistled softly in the chimney, though there hadn't been a roof in centuries. Maya laughed at first and whispered, "Well, aren't you an uninvited guest?" She was the type of person who made tea for spirits, and spilled some for them too. The tongues, she noted, were carved from different materials. Bone antler bitumen, soft jet, a broken ceramic flute, a seal's tooth, and what might be hardened bread. She wrote that last one down with a question mark. One tongue tasted sweet, she claimed. She didn't say which. Some researchers still argue whether the doll's mouth was ever intended to open. Several early sketches of similar artifacts show sealed lips or no mouth at all. It's possible Mia cracked it. It's possible she lied. But here's the odd part. She didn't keep it. She reburied it, same position, same depth, carefully marked. And then she left, never publishing her findings. The only clue she gave was in a notebook left to her sister, which read, "The 7th tongue still whispers when it rains." I think it's learning new words. Joke number 1. That's why we no longer teach rain to speak. It picks up all the wrong dialects. You arrive years later. Not as an archaeologist, but as someone with a map copied from a page of that notebook following rumors of a buried nursery and a doll that eats songs. You don't really believe that, of course. You're here for the thrill, and maybe some footage for your channel. But the wind here moves like someone lost count of how many voices it had. You film the stones. You hum a tune you can't name. You clear the soil with a brush made of horsehair, not plastic. It feels respectful. When the clay face emerges, you stop breathing for a moment. Not because it's terrifying, but because it looks dry, too dry. As if someone had kiln-fired the entire floor of the nursery just last week. Your brush leaves no streaks. Your breath leaves no fog. Your presence leaves no footprints. Joke number 2. Congratulations. You've discovered the only place on Earth where even ghosts practice preservation techniques. You lift the doll. Something clinks. A tiny sound like a button falling onto wood. But there is no wood. You check your pocket. Nothing's missing. Then you look down. There's a small dark tongue on the ground. And it's not one of the 7. You count again. 7 in the doll's mouth. 1 on the floor. That makes 8. 8 is a sacred number in some steppe cultures. In others, it's the number of loops a snake must make to become a symbol of infinity. And in one obscure Welsh folktale, 8 is the number of tongues stolen by a ghost who forgets her own name nightly. She hides them in dolls. She waits until someone picks the 8th up. Joke number 3. And wouldn't you know it? You just picked it up. You place it back. The doll doesn't resist, but the wind makes a low whimpering sound through the doorframe. And you hear for just a moment something muttered not behind you but inside you. The words are indistinct, but the rhythm feels familiar. It's the lullaby your grandmother used to hum, the one no one remembers teaching her. You don't know what language it was. You don't know who it was meant to put to sleep. You don't know why your hands are still cradling the doll long after the footage stops recording. You sleep near the hearth that night. You say it's for convenience, but it's because the doll doesn't leave your thoughts. Not even when you close your eyes. You try placing it back in the hole respectfully with a murmured apology. It sits there politely, but in your dreams it follows you, not walking, not floating, just always already there, as if it had never stopped being in your hands. When you wake, you find a dry layer of dust clinging to your fingertips. You didn't touch the soil. The nursery, now fully cleared, shows the layout of an old communal dwelling for the youngest children of the settlement. 6 tiny hearths. Sleeping alcoves the size of fox burrows. Fragments of soot-blackened wooden toys. One corner contains the remains of a wooden drum hollowed from birch and sealed with stretched hide. The hide has no punctures, no stretch marks. It's not from any animal known to the region. Maya never mentioned it in her notes. Some researchers believe prehistoric drums were used not for rhythm but for summoning. Not spirits' weather, a child's rain call, a beat matched to thunder patterns. In some coastal Andean cultures, archaeologists have found children's graves with pebble rattles carved in the shape of clouds. Some still rattle, some don't. And some, like this one, have no sound at all when struck, but seem to echo a moment later from somewhere you didn't strike. Joke 1. It's called the delayed echo of regret. Most of us hear it right after we say something we can't take back. You leave the drum untouched. You return to your small camp near the stream. You edit some footage. You review the doll recording. You scrub the audio. That's when you hear it. Buried under the static just before the final frame cuts out is a voice. 7 syllables, whispered, hard consonants, some fricative sibilants like air escaping a woven basket. You isolate it, slow it, reverse it. It still sounds like your grandmother. You text your sister a clip. She replies, "I haven't heard that since Dad died." That's the second time you wonder if the doll speaks. Not the tongues, not the carving, the clay itself. A whisper trapped between cracks, only released when warmth returns to the kiln that once made it. Later that evening, you rebury the doll. But this time you feel it watching. Not with malice, not with pleading, with memory, like something that was made to hold a moment and now that moment is over. You pause. You place the 8th tongue beside it. You arrange the limbs as Maya described. You even whisper your name softly into the open mouth. Nothing happens. You laugh, the wind doesn't. Joke 2. That's how you know it's ancient wind. No sense of humor. Still that night you wake at 2:12 a.m. with dirt in your mouth. It tastes like burnt honey and wet ash. The doll is still buried. You dig it up again at dawn, not because you need to, but because you feel the compulsion crawling under your ribs. You bring it to the stream. You wash the clay gently, carefully. You watch how the water pools in the mouth. 7 bubbles rise, then one more. 8. You place the doll upright in a sunlit patch of moss. You leave it. For 6 hours, you don't look at it. When you finally turn back, it has sunk a little into the moss. But the strangest part is the smell. Like a place where someone once wept for a long time. Like old salt. Like stones soaked in bread. Some scholars still debate whether dolls like these were meant to receive grief or contain it. The difference, of course, is practical. One is ritual, the other is storage. No consensus has been reached. Joke 3. That's academia for you. Weep into a doll and call it evidence, and they still ask if you measured the angle of the tears. That night, the drum thuds once, just once, at exactly 3:03 a.m. No one is near it. You check your camera, no motion. You return to the doll's pit. It's still there, but the eighth tongue is gone. You do not remember taking it. You do not feel it in your pockets. You do, however, find yourself humming again. Not a song from childhood, a new one. A minor key melody with 8 notes. Then silence, then 8 again, then 8. The wind doesn't follow this one, but the stones do. When you stop humming, the pit is deeper than it was, by exactly the length of one tongue. You stop filming, not because anything feels wrong, but because everything feels watched. The trees, the stones, the way your water bottle reflects light without a source. Even the sun seems to hover too long in one position, as if it's pretending to set but hasn't quite remembered how. You turn off your camera. The lens fogs anyway. You haven't touched the doll in days, but when you sleep, your palms are marked with clay. Not dried or hardened damp, as if you just shaped something in a dark room. The eighth tongue never reappears, but sometimes just before dawn you swear you can hear it rattling, not in the air, inside your teeth. You start whispering your name each morning, just in case it slips away in the night. In one of her notebooks, Maya wrote something strange. If the doll ever turns its head, leave the sight. Immediately. Do not thank it. Do not look back. Do not take the weather with you. No one knows what she meant by the last part. A few folklorists have speculated that in certain Baltic traditions, spirits can hitch a ride in fog clinging to your clothes. But the nursery mound is inland. There shouldn't be fog. So of course, one morning there is. It starts from the clay pit, spills outward, dry but moving, as if rising from something deeper than soil. You try to document it, but your camera's battery is empty, not drained. Empty. The meter reads no battery installed. Joke 1. If this were a horror movie, this is the part where you keep filming anyway and we all yell at you. Instead, you sit. You breathe. You whisper another name into the doll's mouth, your sister's this time. The fog doesn't change. But that night she dreams of tongues. Not yours, not hers, just many. Lying on a nursery floor, twisting gently, humming to each other. You haven't told her anything. She texts you, don't bring anything back, not even the dirt. You lie. You say you won't. Later that night, while editing old footage, you notice something new. In the clip from the second excavation, the one where you gently clean the doll with water, you notice a reflection on the stream's surface behind you. A shape. Small, thin, about the height of a toddler. The arms are too long. You scrub back and forth frame by frame. At no point does it move. But the ripples are wrong. They flow away from it, not toward. As if the reflection is an object, not an image. You delete the file. The sound remains. Somewhere in your drive you find an unnamed clip, 7 seconds long. It's just the lullaby, played backwards, and then forwards, then silence. Joke 2. It's like the doll is trying to DJ your nightmares. And honestly, it's doing a pretty good job. The pit gets deeper, by itself. You try to measure it. The measuring tape comes back with something sticky on it. Pale, sweet-smelling, like boiled sap. You touch it, it hardens instantly, then crumbles. Inside the crumbs, fibers, hair maybe? Very fine, not human. Some scholars believe early humans wove mourning figures from animal gut and clay, leaving them to dissolve in water as offerings. Others insist these were to lure the dead, not mourn them. Some deny they existed at all. Maya footnoted one claim with the phrase, "Not all evidence fossilizes. Some just waits." That night, the drum sounds again, but this time it echoes 8 times. And in the last beat, you hear your own laugh. Not current. You, child you. Joke 3. That's either a memory, or the drum just got really good at impressions. The nursery mound starts shifting, gently. Just a crack here, a crumble there. The 6th hearth collapses in on itself. Inside you find something unexpected. A mirror. Not glass, not polished metal. Just a circle of blackened stone worn smooth. When you breathe on it, it doesn't fog, but your reflection blinks only once. and the eyes are closed. You place the mirror beside the doll. The mouth widens a little. You didn't touch it, but the clay stretches, just slightly. The eighth tongue is still missing. Unless it's not supposed to be in the mouth. Unless it's supposed to be in you. The wind changes direction. For the first time, it blows from the pit outward. You close the excavation. Not out of fear, but because the nursery feels finished. Not resolved. Just done waiting. You cover the doll. You leave no markers. You take nothing with you, except your voice, which now skips occasionally when you speak aloud. Only in eights. You return home. The customs officer waves you through. Nothing suspicious. No bones, no soil samples, no carved artifacts. Just your camera, and a notebook that smells faintly of old rain. You settle back into your quiet apartment where the walls don't breathe and the floors don't exhale. You unpack slowly, deliberately, as if unwrapping each item might reveal something it wasn't before. You didn't bring the doll. You made sure of that. You left it buried, surrounded by moss and silence. Still, there's dirt under your nails. You wash your hands 8 times. Scrub them until they sting. They still smell like clay. You check your footage again. Everything after the final night at the nursery is blank. No files, no memory card errors, just blank. As if nothing happened, as if the camera blinked. You listen to your voice memos. 7 are normal. The 8th is a child's voice. It whispers your name. Not your full name, the one your grandmother called you. The one she claimed wasn't yours originally, just something she heard in a dream long before you were born. You do not remember recording it. Joke 1. Either you've been haunted by a tongue doll, or your grandma was way ahead of the branding curve. You start dreaming differently. Not nightmares exactly, just rehearsals. Every night, the same scene, a clay floor, a mouth that opens, and a sound that doesn't echo but folds. You wake up with words you don't recognize stitched into your breath. Once you mutter something at the bus stop and an old woman flinches. She doesn't speak, just nods. Then, in a language you don't know, she says, "You didn't bury the 8th one." You go still. You don't ask how she knows. That evening, you get out your notebook. You check your field sketches, your notes on the tongues. 7 materials, 7 counted, 1 missing. Then you remember something Mia wrote, scrawled in a margin almost as a joke. What if the 8th isn't missing? What if the doll is just learning to speak with one of ours? Joke 2. That's not the kind of sentence that helps you fall asleep at night. It's the kind that keeps your pillow warm with paranoia. You decide to check something. You weigh your pack. Same as it was on departure. You weigh it again the next morning. It's heavier, by exactly 43 grams. The average weight of a human tongue is around 70 grams, but a child's much closer to 43. You empty the pack, nothing new, just clothes tape notes, and your grandmother's scarf. You forgot you packed it. A soft, faded thing that still smells like mint and wood smoke. It wasn't in the bag when you arrived at the site. You check the pocket. A shard of clay, smooth, pale, carved with 7 shallow notches. It hums when held, very faintly. Only if you're completely silent. Only if you're breathing slow. You record the hum, reverse it, filter the white noise. It becomes a lullaby. You don't know what language it is. You whistle it aloud. The walls of your apartment crack, just a little, like they're stretching. Some researchers claim that certain frequencies, especially those derived from prehistoric musical instruments, can cause sympathetic vibration in architectural structures. Others insist it's coincidence. Still, others argue that prehistoric lullabies weren't music but speech for the land itself. Joke 3. So maybe your landlord was right. Maybe your humming is a noise complaint from the foundation. You try to let it go. You seal the shard in a box, wrap it in linen, place it on the highest shelf, but every so often it moves. Not much, just a different angle, a different corner resting down. Sometimes it faces you. You test yourself, record your dreams, listen back. 7 nights of silence. Then on the 8th, a voice says, "I remember your name now." You stop recording, You write it down just once. It's not a doll, it's a question. And the eighth tongue is the answer. You think of Maya, of her final notes of the phrase, "No one understands, do not take the weather with you." You check the forecast. Clear skies, the app says, but outside the wind shifts wrong. The leaves don't rustle, they listen. Your breath fogs the window in summer. You trace your name into the glass. It writes itself backward. You move. You don't tell anyone why. A different city, colder, quieter, closer to sea cliffs where the air feels too salt-heavy for old voices to cling. You unpack nothing that hums. You bring no scarves, no shards, no camera batteries. Just a bag of unread books and the kind of silence you think you can control. It follows you anyway, not the doll, not exactly. But the sense of waiting, the sense that a floor beneath your feet might remember things you haven't yet done. At the local market, someone sells hand-carved figures. One catches your eye. A child-sized form, mouthless. You turn it over. No signature. But in the hollow of its back, someone has etched a small spiral of notches. 7 curving inward. You leave it on the stall. You don't touch anything else for a week. In dreams, the nursery returns, but subtly changed. Now, there are not 6 hearths, but 8. And in the center, a mirror again. But it doesn't reflect you. It reflects the version of you who stayed. Who kept filming. Who picked up the 8th tongue and listened. You try not to look at it long. That version blinks too slowly. Joke 1. That's the downside of second chances. They're always happening to someone else. You begin to speak less. People call you quiet, thoughtful. You nod, smile. But truly you're listening. Not with your ears, with the place beneath your ribs where breath used to settle. Some nights you whistle the lullaby aloud again, soft and low like a question wrapped in breath. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes the wind answers. It doesn't say words. It touches them. A fingertip across your eardrum. A breeze that only moves your name. Once you wake up speaking a language you can't translate, but you understand it. Deep in the marrow. It says, the silence is full. Your phone's voice assistant activates itself the next morning. It asks you if you meant to search how to remove a name from clay. You turn it off. It turns back on. Joke 2. The doll has better tech support than you do. In a final attempt at distance, you send Maya's notebook to a colleague overseas. You don't explain much. Just the coordinates. The drawings. A page marked, "The pit remembers being a mouth." The floor was always a tongue. They thank you politely. 2 weeks later, they email. The pit is deeper. The doll is gone. You never respond. You start humming again. But this time not the lullaby. A new rhythm. Slow layered. A question without an answer. 8 beats, a pause, 8 again. Someone knocks on your door. Not hard, not urgent. Just familiar. You do not open it. Joke 3. You finally understand why the doll smiled. It was never waiting to speak, it was waiting to be understood. You find yourself drawn to children's voices in parks, to songs with minor keys, to dolls in antique stores with chipped mouths. You never touch them. But you listen, and occasionally they hum back. You dream one last dream, not a nightmare. A nursery, empty, warm, softly breathing through the cracks in the walls. A circle of dolls seated neatly. One stands. It has your hands. In the dream, it doesn't chase you. It just leans in and says, "You left me buried in your voice." You wake up with dry clay on your tongue. Not a lot, just enough to taste memory. And then, silence. A good silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of listening. You don't film again, you don't write. But sometimes when it rains, and it does, now often you hum something under your breath and forget where you learned it. And sometimes the wind answers back in 8s. There is no ending, not really. Just a breath you forgot to finish, a doll. You didn't mean to shape a whisper. Someone else placed inside your mouth long before you learned your own name. The pit is quiet now. The tongues have stopped rearranging. But beneath every nursery floor, something still listens, not for screams, not for footsteps, but for familiarity. A name spoken the same way twice. A laugh that trembles like memory. A silence too symmetrical to be accidental. So if the wind shifts tonight and the rain hums something nearly known, don't answer. Just smile. Just listen. And count carefully. Next time, when you hear voices that shouldn't be there, there should only ever be 7.